Today's episode features a very special guest, Kristina Persaud, a New York City Department of Education educator who's been in the field for over 5 years. Tune in and learn as Kristina discusses how working as a teacher in the Bronx helped shape her transition into administration today. There are a lot of teachers who may be apprehensive when it comes to making the switch from teacher to administrator. Listen as Kristina provides helpful tips for making that switch. Thank you so much, Kristina, for joining me on this podcast today. You can just start off by introducing yourself and letting us know how'd you hear about SITE.
So my name is Kristina Persaud. I'm a teacher. I teach with the New York City Department of Education. I became a teacher in 2017. I actually did it through an alternative pathway. I did it through teaching fellows. And I've been teaching in the Bronx ever since. I was a Bronx cohort fellow. I guess I just never left the Bronx, which honestly I attribute to a lot of my growth because unfortunately it is a lot harder to teach in the Bronx than it is to teach in the other boroughs. And I mean, I don't want to speak for the rest of the country or anywhere in New York because I haven't taught there, but in New York, for sure, the Bronx definitely has it a little harder with keeping teachers and educators in general. The teacher shortage is much more intense over there, and the students oftentimes are coming way below grade level. I teach at the high school level, and I always get students that have like first, second, third grade reading levels, writing levels. So it's a bit of a struggle, and I think it forces you to kind of grow a lot quicker than you would have if you were in a place where it's easier to teach or a place where you're comfortable, because you do really grow when you're uncomfortable. And I don't want to say it like it's a bad thing, but I think through my discomfort of having students that are at a much lower level than I would have expected, I have grown into becoming the educator that I am, which then led me to my path to SITE. I did their SBL, SDL program. I started it last year, graduated this May. And here I am.
I love that you transitioned into administration. Have you already started looking for positions? If so, what has it been like?
So to be quite honest, I have not secured a position yet, and I haven't been doing the best job at, I guess, looking for positions right now. I have some experience though looking, I guess, at the administrative perspective through the looking at teaching through an administrative perspective. At my school that I teach at, which has been all of my teaching experience, I've worked really closely with admin in doing a lot of the administrator roles, just with the teacher lens on. And I think as I have been preparing just with practice interviews with myself, um, it's difficult. And I'm not going to say that like really lightly, but it's difficult because I can do all of the help in the world with my admin in doing these administrative roles, but then until you're actually in the position or you're prepping and you're trying to say, I did this or I did that, it's like, okay, but you weren't actually an administrator and you always had that comfort of being a teacher still, where someone else is the person that it's at the end of the day, it's falling on them, not on you. Um, and I think that's something that has been kind of like a mental roadblock that I've been trying to get past, which is, yeah, I do have the confidence in the things that I have done with my administration, but at the same time, I guess just overcoming that idea of the fact that, yes, I was not an administrator at the time, but just trusting in my own skills that I am able to do it. As I am looking into different positions, it's been challenging. So I guess to answer your question, I have not secured a position yet, and I am still looking at schools. I think that it's an intimidating process for anyone going into it, especially coming in at your first year, just having graduated, because people are going to look at you like, why should I hire you? What do you bring to the table? And I think a part of that is just being able to learn how to leverage your own skills and speak of yourself confidently because you did do the thing. You do have the experience, you did graduate, and you are capable of doing this. And if you just wait to be ready, you're never going to be ready. So just take the chance and go.
Absolutely. I love that. And Also, I just want to say, what do you think are some of the characteristics or strengths? What are some of your strengths, or what do you think some of the strengths of a ideal admin assistant principal or principal are?
I think they're the same ones that are the strengths of a good teacher, which is having the passion. Your passion, I think, is the most important thing. And always just remembering, why did you go into this field altogether? I think as a teacher and even as an admin, you meet people all the time where you're kind of just question it. You're like, why are you in this field? Because you can't find their passion or you can't find the reason why they're in it. And I think that sometimes when you get so deep into it, you yourself sometimes lose the passion and you lose that understanding of, why did I get into this? So it's constantly reminding yourself why you joined this field. Why did you go become a teacher? Why did you become a leader? Why do you want to run a school or do any of these things? And I think that passion is important. Aside from the passion, I think a good characteristic is patience. The same patience that you want for your teachers, you want for your students, you want for people in general, I think you need to have for yourself and just everyone around you. If you're not patient and willing to, I guess, learn and just take a step back, then you're not going to see the growth. It's the same thing I was talking about before with, growing in the uncomfortable. I think that takes a lot of patience and knowing there is going to be a good outcome and maybe there's not, but having the patience to see which way it's going to go. Another good characteristic I would say is communication. In any field you go, communication is necessary. But I think in teaching, a part of the communication is advocacy, which is the same thing in leadership. Constantly advocating for what's right for your students. This is something that teachers do on a regular basis. But as a administrator, you're not just advocating for your students, you're advocating for your teachers, your paras, your school support staff, everyone in the building, and teaching them in a way how to advocate for themselves and how to advocate for the students that they're serving. And it's also, I don't know, I meet people all the time where I'm like, your communication skills are kind of horrible, where I didn't necessarily understand what you were trying to get at with me. And I think that that's something that I never want to be a leader where someone's listening to me talk and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you say that to me again? Which I'm sure is going to happen. It may even happen right now in this feature. But at the same time, it's about being able to express yourself. And then the last one is collaboration. I think collaboration is so important because whether you're the leader or you're someone who is just working in the building doing something that someone might not find as important, you're all important. Like, not one person runs the show. We all work together and we're all equally as important doing whatever it is that our job is. And it's just understanding that and taking your ego out of it. But yeah.
Great answer. And I also wanted to know, how was it basically, or how'd you find the coursework or course load as a teacher transitioning into administration?
I'm going to be very honest here. There were so many points in the program where I did struggle a bit. And it's because every one of us that are in the program, whether it was a teacher, a guidance counselor, or whatever position it is that you had before you entered, we already have so many leadership positions that we are doing or responsibilities. And I think that I underestimated at certain points the workload that we were going to have. So there were times when I was that student that would email my professor at the end of the day, I need an extension, because I wasn't able to properly manage my time in order to complete both my coursework and my workload. And that did become a bit exhausting, but I think it depends necessarily more on the instructor that you had in a way, only because, and I don't say this to look down on any professor that I had, it's just different students all have different learning styles and you don't know which professor you're getting or what their teaching style is. So as a teacher, it actually made me rethink about my own teaching styles because I'm like, wow, so what that professor is doing does not work for me, but what the other professor does really does work for me. And then it honestly made me just reconsider my craft and I would steal some of the ideas that I saw them doing and use it in the classroom to see how it would work out. But the workload, I will say, is not difficult. It requires you to think out of your teacher lens. which sometimes can be hard when day in and day out you have to teach and you have to use that teacher lens. And now you come to your program. For me, it was one day a week every Saturday. And then now I may have just come from work the day before, and now it's like, forget your teacher lens, put on your admin hat, and let's do that. And that can be kind of difficult, I think, at times. But it requires you to really just think outside the box a little bit and push yourself. So the coursework, I would say, not difficult, can be time consuming. There's a lot of reading. And you just have to learn how to manage your time. But other than that, I think it was a good experience.
What would you say to somebody that is a career changer and let's say they're in accounting or maybe they're in like the food industry, but they really have this new passion for education and maybe they just want to be a teacher and maybe not all in administration, or maybe they do want to go into administration one day. What would you say to them?
So I definitely always wanted to be a teacher. When I was a little kid, I used to steal chalk at school and then go home and use my chalk on my chalkboard, which was the door, to help my brother with his homework. So it's kind of always been something that I wanted to do. But I would say for someone who maybe that wasn't their life, that they, were a teacher vigilante over here as a child, um, I would say as long as I think you have the passion, I would say go for it. All of the skills we use as teachers are all of the skills you use in every single job. And it's just about learning how to leverage your skills to meet the needs of the job that you have in front of you. Um, Passion, again, I think is my number one thing. When you're passionate and it's obvious that you're into what you're talking about and you feel it like in your soul, it's so clear in the classroom. Whether that's to your students or to someone walking into your room, they can see that. They can tell whether you're bored of what you're saying or if it makes no sense to you. So I would say if you have the passion and you want to go be a teacher and change your career, I would say do it. It's great. It's difficult too though. It's not like the easiest job, which I think a lot of people do kind of come into teaching thinking summer's off, finishing 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not just that. It's also long hours of planning, especially when you're first starting off as a teacher. As you get comfortable in your career as a teacher, planning becomes so much easier and quicker. But when you first start as a teacher, you might spend hours lesson planning or grading or taking home stacks and stacks of paper where it's not just an 8 to 2. It ends up being like an 8 to 6 or 8 to 7. I know teachers when I first started who would stay in the building till those hours. I had a 2.5 hour commute, so I didn't, but I took home those stacks and stacks of paper home, and I would be grading on the train or at home, and I was miserable during that time, but it goes back to the time management. Um, Figure out what works for you and what doesn't, and just lean on the people around you. There's so much wisdom and so much wealth in the people with experience and even the people without experience. See what the people your peers are doing as they're learning and go from there. But if it's something you want to do, I would say jump right in.
Lastly, I wanted to ask, let's say there's somebody about to join the program tomorrow. What are three quick tips that you feel like they need to know?
So, three quick tips I would say for sure, be able to manage your time. There is going to be a lot more work than you expect, more in the reading than the writing. Um, Two, make sure this is something you want to do. There are people who, you don't realize it till you're halfway through the program that, wow, like I didn't expect that all of this would be encompassed in this program. And I don't think I'm ready for that responsibility. And three, like I said, with becoming a new teacher, becoming a new admin, lean on the people in your program. It's something I did not do enough because I can be a little shy sometimes. But I would say lean on the people around you just because they're all going through the same thing that you are, learning it all for the first time as well. And if you are able to create that network, these are all people that you could potentially be working with in the future, whether in a school or in other capacities. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristina, for an amazing episode. And for more information on our administration program, please visit www.stroseapply.com or email diane@siteprograms.com. That's CITEPROGRAMS.com. And to stay updated on everything Site, please follow us on all social media platforms at Site Programs. That's CITEPROGRAMS. Till next time.